A single sentence on a social media feed stopped thumbs from scrolling. He did what he had to do, a user wrote. Protecting my kids is all that matters. The post was from a father, a man now at the center of a storm. The words spread like wildfire across local forums, national news aggregators. They were shocking. They were direct. They were posted just hours after his wife was found dead in their family home, and they became the opening argument in a case that would divide a community long before it ever reached a courtroom. This was no anonymous crime. It was a tragedy unfolding in real time. The story began not with a formal police press release. To the outside world, they were the picture of a stable, happy family. The father, a 38-year-old man named David, managed a local auto parts store. He was known for his friendly demeanor and his willingness to help neighbors with car troubles on weekend afternoons. The mother, Sarah, was 35. She was a beloved second-grade teacher at the local elementary school, remembered for her bright smile and the creative projects she brought into her classroom. They seemed to be pillars of their small, tight-knit community. They had 2 young children, a boy aged 8 and a girl aged 5. Neighbors often saw them playing in the front yard, David pushing them on the swing set he had built himself, Sarah teaching them how to tend to the small flower garden by the porch. They were regulars at community events, 4th of July Parade School's annual fall festival. Publicly, there were no signs of discord, no loud arguments that cut through the night, no police visits. The call to 911 came in just before 10 p.m. on a Tuesday evening. The voice on the other end was frantic. The voice was male. He identified himself as David. He told the dispatcher his wife, Sarah, was acting erratically. She was armed with a knife. He said she was threatening him. He said their 2 young children were in the same room, witnessing it. The dispatcher could hear shouting in the background. Panicked words could be heard, and what sounded like a child crying. The call was brief, ending abruptly with a chilling sound. A single gunshot. Within 3 minutes, the first patrol car arrived. The officers found the front door unlocked. They entered cautiously, weapons drawn. Inside, the living room showed clear signs of a violent struggle. A lamp lay overturned. Shattered pieces of a ceramic plate were scattered across the floor. They found Sarah on the ground, bleeding from a gunshot wound to her chest. Before the police department could issue an official press release, the story had already taken on a life of its own online. The narrative fractured almost immediately into 2 fiercely defended viewpoints. On one side, a wave of support for David swelled. A Facebook group titled "Justice for a Protective Father" appeared overnight, gaining thousands of members. The profile was filled with photos of him smiling with his children. "He's a hero," one user wrote. "Any real parent would do the same thing to protect their babies," another wrote. Supporters seized on the 911 call and the presence of the knife. On the other side, tributes to Sarah painted a different picture. "My sister was gentle and kind. She loved her children more than anything." Why was a loaded gun so readily accessible in a home with young children? Rumors about stress, money, and a hidden temper fueled suspicion. The digital world became a battlefield of memories, accusations, and heartfelt pleas. After several hours of questioning, the police formally arrested David. The official statement confirmed identities, a single gunshot, and a knife recovered. David was charged with second-degree murder and held without bail. David's defense centered on defense of others. That justification allows deadly force to protect another from imminent harm. His actions were a direct and reasonable response to a life-threatening attack. He did what any loving father would do. The defense would argue a reasonable perception of imminent peril, but prosecutors would question reasonableness and alternatives. Friends of Sarah organized a candlelight vigil outside the elementary school where she had taught. Hundreds of people attended, students, parents, fellow teachers. Sarah was light. She was a mother who lived for her children. We cannot let her be remembered as anything else. Close-up of handwritten tribute cards and flowers. The hashtag #Justice for Sarah began trending in the local area. Supporters of David raised tens of thousands for legal fees.
Stand with a father who stood for his kids.
Arguments broke out in coffee shops and grocery stores. Friendships strained as people took sides. They were placed in temporary custody of Child Protective Services, then with their maternal aunt for stability and privacy.
The children have experienced an unimaginable trauma. Our focus is on their healing and well-being.
Forensic interviews were recorded with extreme care to minimize harm. A guardian ad litem was appointed to advocate solely for the children's best interests. Ultimately, the children are the most tragic victims of this story. They will grow up in the shadow of a public tragedy, documented in headlines and archives. Their path to healing will be long, requiring immense support. With community and family, there can be a measure of normalcy again. Their silent suffering is the deepest and most enduring cost of the violence that erupted in their home. The initial narrative was shaped by a shaky video and a few provocative posts, creating a bias nearly impossible to undo. Facts became secondary to feelings, speculation treated like evidence. The court will eventually deliver a verdict, but public opinion is already fractured. The legal proceedings will continue for months, possibly years. A jury will be selected, tasked with sifting through forensic reports, expert testimonies, and the fragmented memories of traumatized children. Jurors must set aside the noise and focus only on evidence. Whether David is found guilty, convicted of a lesser charge, or acquitted for defending his children, consequences will be permanent. If convicted, he faces a long sentence, leaving his children effectively orphaned. If acquitted, he is free, but must live with taking his wife's life and the public that doubts him. For Sarah's family, no verdict can bring her back. Their grief is permanent. The children will carry the weight of this night for the rest of their lives. In a world where everyone has a platform, how do we ensure justice is based on truth, not the most compelling story? The law demands proof beyond a reasonable doubt, a far higher bar than a viral post. We must remember the human beings at the core, the mother who is gone, the father facing judgment, and especially the children who lost everything. Their private pain should command our compassion far more than their public story commands our opinion.